As always, let's take a look at where we left off last time. So if I press play, you can see here we have our giant robot idol. What I'd like to do is make this my main character. So let's begin by creating a blueprint. If you recall, in our characters folder, we made a folder called generic bot, and within that is the static mesh model that we brought in. So if I double click it, you can see this has the joints. There is no animation blueprint set up, but we'll get into that probably in this video as well. Actually, let me go ahead and dock this up here. And inside of here, I made a folder and I just kind of dragged in my idle and walk, which are just the two animations that we created before. Ideally, you want to create more than one animation. And what I mean by that is a run, a walk to the side, left and right, all that good stuff. All right, so back in here, I have a folder called Blueprints, and I have an example character folder here, which is for a different scene. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to name this, I'm going to create a new folder inside of my Blueprints folder. And this is where my blueprint is going to live for my character. So in here, I'm going to create a new blueprint class, and I'm going to make it the character type. And what I'd like to name this is robot underscore 245. So I remember what it was, 401. So, and then underneath that, well, actually, let's not do 01, just 245 underscore, and then BP for blueprint. I tend to like to, some people you'll see will do BP underscore so people can see it's a blueprint right away. I like to put it at the end. Let's double click this. And if it doesn't dock it, let's dock it up on our panel here. So you can see right off the bat, it's pretty nice. You get a little access to your content browser here. So inside that characters folder, you can see I have a access to, for example, my generic bot, which is that robot underscore SM. So for instance, down in our component section here, you can see the capsule, which is our collider. And this is the direction in which my character is going to face when it spawns. And then I have the actual arrow itself that's there as a helper. And then a area to add a mesh. And right now it's a skeletal mesh component. So remember, this character here is a skeletal mesh. And what it means by is we have a mesh and we have a skeleton inside of it. So what I'm going to do is just grab my robot underscore SM underscore C. I think for you all, it'll be static mesh, the robot underscore SM. And I'm going to drag it and drop it inside here. You can also click on none here and you'll see there's robot idle and then there's robot underscore SM underscore C. So now when I click on that, you can see that it's quite large. It's much bigger than our capsule here, and it's also facing the wrong direction. So you can see we can adjust our rotations in our transform section over here. So if I click on that, so what I want to do is I'm just going to type in, let's see, -90, so it's facing forward. And then I'm going to select my capsule component, and you could see here that the transform, I can lock it and play with the scale. But for now, I'm just going to play with the half size, the radius, to kind of make it a little bit bigger. And let's see if I can hit W to move that up. Doesn't look like I can, but I'm pretty sure I can adjust the transform here. Let's see. So let's go to, instead of scale, you know what we can do? Let's see. I can move my mesh down as well. And that looks pretty good. That kind of encompasses it as well. So I'm going to go ahead and compile and save that. And then in my entitled area here, what I do is I'm actually going to delete this robot static mesh here. Actually, you know what? We'll just put it over here like it's sort of like somebody at a birthday cake playing the idle animation. But with this blueprint that we just created here, which we really should put in a new folder, I'll just call this 245 or yeah, 245 underscore character. So I know it's for 245. So I'll grab and drop that in there. I'll just move that there. And then when I go inside of here, I'll drag and drop that in my scene. And you can see because it's a blueprint class, it automatically snaps vertically so that the capsule is above the ground. I also have a little bit of spacing here that I don't want. So I'm going to go back into here and I'm just going to make sure that my robot character here is way at the bottom here. So something like that. And then I'll compile and save that. And if we go to our entitled, you can see it went a little bit closer to the floor. So let's press play to check that. Now you can see there's our character. It doesn't have any sort of idle animation on there, but that's okay. As I mentioned, I'd like to ideally replace that character that appears with this one. So let's continue down that path. So the first thing I want to do is, you'll notice if I press play here, I am possessing this character here. So what I'd like to do though is, with this character selected here, is off into the details panel on the side. You'll see a search here. I'm going to type POSS for possess, and you could see it says auto possess player disabled. And with this selected, I'm just going to put this in player 0 slot. And now notice what happens when I press play. You could see I'm actually inside of the robot character. So if I hit escape and I zoom out a little bit, you can see I'm in the center of this character. So that's pretty cool. So we've set this as our default character, but we don't have a camera or anything set up. And we also don't necessarily have inputs to move this character around. All right, so with that said, let's go back into our Robot 245 blueprint and click on add. And you can either type in camera here, and we'll go ahead and add a camera here. And you can see here, this is the camera, and you'll notice that it's actually inside the body of the character. And that's why when we go to possess it, it sets it as the default position. But the thing is, and you can actually move this out here and it'll update when we run our scene. I'm going to undo that. What we want to use is something called a spring arm. And what's cool about the spring arm is, and we want the spring arm to be a child of the camera. So I'm going to actually kind of drag that up to this capsule, and then I'm going to make the camera the child of the spring arm. Now what you'll notice is it actually moved the camera way back there. And what's cool about this is we can actually adjust the spring arm's position and the camera will move with it. So for example, on this rotation, I want it to be, let's see, maybe a little bit higher like this. Let's see, is this locked? Okay, there we go. So let's do minus 45 degrees, maybe 35. That might be a little too, 30. Let's try minus 25. I'll let you play with the values that you think are best, but let's compile and save that. Also, one other thing you could notice is there's target arm length. You can adjust how close. So say we want this to be 200, which is very close. If I go back in my scene, again, compiling and saving, you can see that's where our camera would start if we played the game. So now when I press play, you can see it's framed there. So actually, I might want to go much further out. So let's say 400 and save that and press play. Now, I'm not able to move or control the character or that camera, which is what we'll want to do in blueprints. But for now, that looks okay, because I plan on hooking up the mouse's X and Y axis as the main controls for the camera spring arm. So actually, I'm going to zero out the location, and there we go, because I want it to be looking directly at the sort of like the bottom half of my character, and I think it remembered that stuff when I was kind of playing with the positioning of the camera. So actually, that looks pretty good, and let's just, we can fiddle more with that later, but just something that I can have that sort of frames my character a little bit. All right, so that looks pretty good. I did 350, zeroed those out. And I think, to be honest with you, that could be, really, this could be all that we need in respect to positioning for now and setting up our camera. So in the next video, we'll expand on this a little bit, and potentially maybe we'll start some blueprinting our character's movement.